On October 31st, 2018, an assembly of more than 1,000 people gathered in Parliament Square to hear a declaration of rebellion. It was a message from protesters to the UK government claiming that it was failing to protect its citizens from the progressing climate crisis. It marked a new wave of climate protests that would eventually grow into a globally recognised movement with nearly 500 affiliates across more than 70 countries. Using non-violent disruptive action, Extinction Rebellion, or XR, aims to force the UK government to declare a climate and ecological emergency, reduce greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2025, and create a citizens' assembly on climate and ecological justice.
Actually, the decision to start a rebellion was made in this room in April 2018. I think there was also a zeitgeist, a moment when the IPCC report had come out. You had Greta starting her work, you had David Attenborough's films. People were ready for a new movement to take form.
Extinction Rebellion's first mass disruption occurred in London in November 2018. Participants, including families and pensioners, occupied 5 bridges over the River Thames, shutting down traffic, and also blocked off Parliament. Since then, they have organised huge occupations around the world. Sit-ins, die-ins, hunger strikes, and other demonstrations at government buildings, local councils, fashion events, and airports. The tactics employed by Extinction Rebellion are contentious. Its members have been frequently confronted by the public, and whilst gaining support from a number of scientists, celebrities, and politicians, its founders, like Gail Bradbrook, have been scrutinised in the media and by the UK government.
Fascistic disruption of other people's lives.
How does it further your cause to stop people going to work?
I don't understand the logic of what you're trying to do.
Uncooperative crusties and protesters of all kinds.
You sort of, to an extent, can't really win. You know, you've had it in the past. When I was on protest, it was always people shouting out of the cars, get a job, get a bath, get a haircut. So it's like, what am I? Am I a kind of dole, scrounging hippie, or am I middle class and privileged? Just by stepping forward, somehow you become scrutinised rather than the actual issues that count.
Gail lives in the English town of Stroud. It's perhaps an unlikely stronghold for a radical movement, but Stroud has a long-standing commitment to the environment. It's both a transition town and also the first Earth Protector town in the UK. The Beacon, a community hub in the heart of the town centre, serves as a home for some of Extinction Rebellion's activities.
I think the Beacon typifies where we want to go with XR, i.e. like real community-based activism and real community-based intimacy in a way. Stroud's come to be this like massive base of support for Extinction Rebellion. We're trying to promote ecocide laws being implemented in this country, which is a really vital backstop, if you will, for stopping the kind of planetary destruction.
London is where much of the focus of Extinction Rebellion's protests have taken place and where their largest support network is based. And much of the organisation for the movement's actions originates in the East End of the city.
It's a real team effort. There's no 1 or 2 people who have birthed Extinction Rebellion. It's often a lot of these sort of unseen folk, the incredible arts team, the people who have been in the back offices, the people who have been helping form like our social media networks and all the rest of it. I mean, they're really been the backbone of all this.
Extinction Rebellion provides the tools for individuals to start their own chapters of the movement in any country in the world. So far, there are 205 groups in the UK alone.
Obviously, the pressures in terms of the climate are nothing in the UK compared to what they are in other places. So why XR took off here is a really interesting question. And it's partly to do with the privilege of being in a temperate zone, in an advanced economy, but it's also the result of, I think, a more extreme pressure from austerity, from neoliberal market ideology. That has resulted in a pressure on the fabric of society that's started to tear.
There are many, many tensions because we're trying to be as inclusive as is possible and at the same time retain some really quite radical philosophies about our direction of travel. For me, the direction of travel is an end to the kind of business as usual attitude that sees people flying off to Glasgow for a business meeting from London every other day. It means having to live in post-capitalist societies. It means absolutely massive fundamental changes to the way that we not only live our lives, but also have to perceive the world as a whole.
Extinction Rebellion has made some gains. The thousands of protesters that have been arrested have altered the debate on climate change. In May 2019, the UK Parliament became the first legislative body to declare a climate emergency. And in November 2019, Parliament sent out 30,000 letters inviting people to join a climate assembly.
In my opinion, it should be understood that rebellion is just a pathway to regenerative cultures, but that all requires systems change. All this must change. Our lives are going to be simpler, and in a lot of respects around the planet, they're going to be a lot bloody bleaker as well.
For Bramwell, Bradbrook, and many of the other members of the movement, the biggest fault lies with politics and the media for not confronting head-on what they see as the truth of climate change.
The issues that we're facing are three main scenarios. One is the collapse of civilizations, or you've got billions of people dying, or human extinction. The media is not doing its job, and democracy is not doing its job. And so what happens in a civil disobedience movement is that you have to disrupt, because the business as usual model is so destructive. There is no other planet like this that we know of. Why wouldn't we turn our attention to this deepest of crises that humanity has ever faced and try and come up with good solutions together? That's all that Extinction Rebellion are really asking for.